Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, an alternate accounts story. Alright, so I have week 3 from the current Grand Arena Championships. I know that Grand Arena Championships are actually just over after today. Once you guys get this, it'll just be a couple hours until the final round ends, and we're just getting to round 3 for my alt account, which honestly I'm fine with. I do these for fun, and I don't put a lot of time into editing, or, if I misspeak or something, I generally just leave it in, frankly. Not a ton of editing, like I said. So, that being said, I do take Grand Arena somewhat seriously on my alt. I don't do a lot of the feats or anything, but, in Division 5, that's not necessarily a huge deal anyways. So, anyways, my first opponent is named KK69, which is a fun number, of course, as many of us know. And they had a really strong defense. A lot of these defenses here are actually really strong, which is why I said what I did in my flare, or rather my thumbnail for this video. There's a lot of interesting matches that are going on even in Division 5. People are just starting to develop their rosters, and in week 3 now I'm facing people in the Chromium League. That means that they've won a consistent amount of times, and so people are no longer pushovers. And one thing that I'm trying in this match, they have a Padme team on defense, and I don't really have a great counter to Padme. Like, that's kind of a weak point in my roster. Like, I have a Treya, who is gear 8 with no Zetas, and otherwise, General Grievous can beat this, but these are all characters who have, they're all gear 12, and that's pretty strong on a Padme team at this, in Division 5. And so I decided to try my own Padme team in the mirror, and this is one of the more miserable matches because you're just hoping that their own Anakin isn't going to get a huge AoE and just kill your whole team, or dispel all of your huge stacks of protection before they can turn into courage. And in this case, I did outmod my opponent by quite a bit in this match. In most of my matches, honestly, I don't really check, but every once in a while, if I check specific characters, generally I do. I have faster characters, so and this was the case as well. So got the win there, and now we can use my Commander Luke team. Commander Luke is a great team for almost any other team out there. The exception being Padme. And of course he doesn't do wonderfully against Darth Revan either. But otherwise he's a great counter, and in this case it's kind of a luxury to be able to use Commander Luke against bounty hunters. You can generally get max banners for that. 53 is great. So we cleared that zone. Now we're just trying to clear this Jedi Revan team, and this is a team that I've been using in 5v5 quite a bit, just scaled down. General Grievous is Relic 3. He's my only Relic 3. He's my highest Relic by far. I only have like 1 or 2 other relics on any of my characters. At 2.5 or less than 2.5 million GP. It's just how it works. And so I took Watt. I have the luxury of unlocking Watt while I was playing Ticket Slave to my old guild for a little bit. And when you get Watt in there, he's great just because you put the weapons tech on General Grievous, and then he just ignores revives. He disallows revives, and that is such a huge bonus. It's such a huge benefit, honestly. That way Jolie is just completely negated. He's just an inefficient counter caller is all he is. So fairly easy match there, even though they probably out geared me by quite a bit. In this match, we have Bossk versus Bastila, and I know that a lot of people feel pretty intimidated about Bastila squads, and they should be in a way. She gives them an enormous amount of protection and a lot of really cool buffs, especially at this level. Like, Bastila is a great character. She's one of the best starting characters ever, so if you're just new and you're starting this, I would highly recommend you getting a Bastila team. However, one of the weak points that I don't see a lot of people exploiting is the fact that if you take bounty hunters against her, there's a lot of different factors that play into it. You know, she doesn't do an enormous amount of damage. She kind of just grinds you down. And Bosk doesn't get ground down. Like, you have to do a sustained huge amount of damage. The other huge thing is Boba does an enormous amount of damage on his execute attack against high buffed enemies, and Bastila gives that a lot of buffs. So, you know, Boba just completely, you know, he annihilates them. You know, or executes them. I guess it's not as funny as I thought it was. If it was Nihilus, it would be more funny, but still not that funny. So, anyways, you know, Boba does great against Bastila. In general, bounty hunters do. So, anyways, got the win there. 54 banners. Bounty hunters are great on offense, and you know, now we're in ships, and this is a really weak Geonosian team. 66 banners is fine, and I have broke through both front zones, and now we're just trying to get into the, you know, kind of juicy center here. You know, and I have my Kylo team up and running. First Order are great. They're so good. You know, Kylo Ren Unmasked is gear 8. Normal Kylo, original Kylo, whatever you want to call him, is gear 9, and then Fox is gear 9. And you know, these Phoenix aren't extremely well geared, but they still have a little bit of, you know, oomph to them. First Order doesn't really care about Phoenix, though. It's a pretty hard counter, and most teams are, for that matter. One thing I really like about First Order, though, is they can regenerate their health and protection throughout the match if they get enough buffs or debuffs. And so there you go, 53 banners, and now we're skipping straight into this Saj Zombie Daka mirror match nightmare. And you know, this is a match that I would love to avoid most times. You've got a lot of factors going on here. So you have Zombie, and you see that I've sped this up because the match goes almost the entire length. So you have Zombie, who is constantly taunting, and beyond that, whenever I kill either Daka or Asajj, then Zombie just revives them the first 2 times I kill one of them. So we have that going on, and then after I kill, and you can't kill Zombie if you're new to the game, you can't kill Zombie at all until all the other Night Sisters are gone, at least after Zombie is gear 10 or higher. So you have that going on. You also have the fact that if you try to kill Asajj after the fact, then old Daka will just revive Asajj, frankly. Like, that's just what happens. And so you have to kill 2 Night Sisters first, then you have to get past the Zombie taunt, then you have to get past the healing from Daka and Zombie and Asajj. All 3 of them heal, and then you have to kill Daka. And if you don't kill Daka first, then you're just resetting the board, because then Daka will just revive Asajj and you rinse repeat. So you see, like, I killed Daka. I think I killed Asajj first, and then I killed Daka. So now Zombie can't revive anyone. Now I'm trying to go for actual kills here. But of course their Zombie is at double speed, or maybe it's triple speed. I forget how the mechanic works. You know, based on how many of that undispellable stack she has. So she's got a ton of speed. And one factor that you have to keep in mind here as we're going through these matches is the fact that every time I kill someone, even if they get revived, my Asajj gets stronger, and so does theirs. So, you know, we get to the point toward the end where I've killed Zombie a ton of times, and, you know, my Asajj is starting to become truly powerful. And, you know, every hit, her AoEs are actually starting to do some real damage. And, you know, that's... I don't even have the Zeta on Asajj to make it double the potency, or rather double the strength that she gains, but as it stands, it still works. 51 banners there, great result, and we can move on to the next match. So one thing that I've noticed is that as I continue to advance in GP at this level, people continue to put gear on their First Order, and I think that that's actually really cool. I love that team. I think it's got a huge amount of utility in Grand Arena, and you guys will see me use First Order quite a bit, actually. You know, maybe not in this video, I don't remember, but in future videos certainly. And one thing that I really love about First Order is the fact that they can double stun, 2-turn stun. And so I'm using my Jedi Knight Revan team here, and one of the reasons for that is, frankly, they're all gear 11, so they're not great, and then Jedi Revan only has 2 Zetas on him at this point. And, as of making this video, I just recently put his 3rd Zeta on, so he's done in terms of that. Still need some more gear on the team, of course, but I'm using them for slightly weaker teams. So, in 3v3, it's great to be able to take on a First Order team, which First Order can really stop people, and Jedi Knight Revan has a lot of tools against it. And then, we have this random, droid team. In 5v5, or 3v3, in Division 5, it's so impossible to find teams that, enough teams on defense, especially if you want to clear on offense. So, did manage to get the full clear here. My opponent also got the full clear, but, which is actually rare, one of the very few opponents who's actually full cleared me in Division 5. But you can see here, they got my top zone, which is full of nothing. I guess Nest is kind of tough. My bottom zone, so my opponent was actually pretty skilled here. They even one-shot my Negotiator fleet, which is pretty strong. And then at the bottom, they failed once against clones, and that was it. So, even if they had beat clones, I would have beat them by about 10 points or so. Maybe not that much, maybe 8. So happy they got the loss there, but I think I still would have won on efficiency. Moving into the next match, my opponent was, they had a significantly worse arena score than my last opponent, and I was hoping that it would be an easier match. What I was really hoping, though, was that my opponent wasn't just an auto-deploy type, and thankfully, none of my matches were actually against an auto-deploy. So that's wonderful. I hate that. I hate having to face that. And, my opponent actually has a really strong roster, and, one of the things that I love doing in 3v3 is taking my bounty hunters against Night Sisters, because everyone is breaking their Night Sisters into 2 teams. It makes a lot of sense. I do it too on my main account. I use my Night Sisters on offense in 3v3 on my alt, but one of the really awesome things, so you remember from the last match where Zombie was reviving people all the time, and then beyond that, Night Sisters just have a ton of revive mechanics, and so it can be really frustrating to deal with them, especially with Zombie taunting. And then Acolyte is constantly stealthed. Every time she shoots a basic, she stealths herself 90% of the time. So always happens, basically. And the awesome thing about Bounty Hunters is I have the Django unique Zeta, so every hit from him, if it's his turn, denies revive, except for against Zombie, of course. Otherwise, Boba also, his execute denies revive. So you saw that Django shot his big hit, and it has a chance to hit other characters as well, and that's what happened. It also hit Acolyte, even though she was stealthed, and she just got taken out. So, pretty fun result there. And now we're doing this again. We're using Jedi Revan against this pretty strong Kylo Ren team. And you can see that they 2-turn stunned my Jedi Revan, which is really strong. I probably should have used Jolie's revive mechanic there just to dispel that from Revan, because his turns are too valuable, and I wasn't in that much danger of having any of my characters die. But, it is what it is. It ended up okay. And now, what we're just trying to focus one of the characters off the board, and, took out Kylo Ren, and now Kylo Ren Unmasked is actually kind of a challenge to take out, just because he's got a ton of health, and then he's got a Zeta, so he's also going to be regenerating quite a bit of health from all the different debuffs that we inflict on him. However, if he gets any buffs, he can't get buffs because I have Mark on him, and Mark prevents that. Also, Jedi Revan, if he's the lead, can reduce max health every time you fail a tenacity check against my characters when I use a basic. So, it was inevitable that he would get taken out eventually. Didn't have super high tenacity, I checked, and Now that we're through this zone, my opponent just put a bunch of fluff in the back, like almost embarrassingly bad characters, like counting on me failing against his questionably strong teams in the front there. Now this is a really interesting team that they had a relict bounty hunter team. So you see Django has relics, Bosk has relics, and my opponent had a pretty bad arena score, but they had a really strong roster. Like they had an extremely strong roster, in fact. And so, we're using Commander Luke here once again against bounty hunters, and this is no joke. I'm out reliced by quite a huge degree here. And the key really is to just not get stuck behind Bosk. So if you can use Han's guaranteed stun on Bosk, that means he's not going to be able to taunt, and then you can take out the side dudes, whoever they are. Taking out Zam was wise, I think, because of her grenades, and eventually I was able to finesse it so that I got mostly max banners, and now we're jumping into a match against Night Sisters. This one is a lot less tricky because they don't have a taunt, and all they have is Daka hanging out there on the side. And because they don't have a taunt and they don't have a revive mechanic besides Daka, you can just focus Daka off the board, and the rest of the squad can just fall after that. This is one of the weaker iterations of Night Sisters. Still got 51 banners, so they knocked 3 off of me, off of a max, even with a really strong Padme team. So it still does have some value, but not the strongest. Now we're doing fleet, and my opponent has they don't have a negotiator, they just have a mace fleet, and the mace fleet is accompanied by this like really, really strong Bosk Houndstooth. Like they had high relics on Bosk, and so the Houndstooth is going to be hard to take out, and otherwise like there's just not that much synergy here. Like Mace is a fine fleet commander. Well, he's not. He sucks. But he does okay, especially in Division 5. He does a lot of frustrating things, but Millennium Falcon just basically negates almost all of that. And even if Falcon didn't, none of these ships actually go with Mace, and that synergy, the lack thereof, is really telling here. So, we're just trying to grind him down. Got the Xanadu Blood in, which he doesn't have much synergy with Akbar fleets, but he just has synergy with everyone, basically. He comes in, gives counter to all the different scoundrels, and then he can call an assist, which is great, because he calls Millennium Falcon, and then Falcon, after shooting, calls someone else to assist, and then everyone's regenerating their protection, and everyone's happy on my end, and Vader is not happy here. So managed to get 65 here, and we can move on to the back zone full of the wonderful trash that my opponent supplied for me. So one thing I want to address is I'm slaughtering these different teams in the back. Like Imagoon D as lead is really fun. I did want to mention a couple things. People have been asking me what my strategy is for my alt, and my main account I try to have a good mix of offense and defense, and just honestly have a stronger defense just to trip people up, and rely on my own theory crafting to be able to get me through against a lot of these stronger teams. It's been working pretty well on my alt, or on my main. On my alt, I just don't have the breadth of characters available to be able to theory craft a lot. Having like a gear 8 Thrawn is fun, but it only get you so far. So, my strategy here is honestly, I keep all of my best teams from offense here. Like all of my best defensive teams are here, except for I don't have Nest super well modded. Well, she's well modded, actually. She's just not Zated, and she's only gear 10. And the fact is, a lot of people can stumble against Nest. She's just not... She's not the strongest character at gear 10, but at the same time, if people don't understand her mechanics, then they'll still struggle against her. So I usually get a defense from her every couple rounds, and that's great. So I keep her and Kira lead on defense, and then I also put my Emperor Palpatine with Badstila and Vader in there as well, just on defense, just because it's trips people up. And then I have like gear 7 and 8 Geonosians, and people just they have so many hit points. It's so hard to deal with that squad, honestly. And Geonosians are great, so put those squads in there. Basically teams that I don't want to use on offense, and otherwise I just save all of my really strong offensive teams. And that means that I'm going to get a full clear more often than not. I need that quite often, actually. People are starting to have Darth Revan pretty commonly, and I don't have Darth Revan yet. And even if I did, I wouldn't have the Zetas to deal with him, or to put on him. So anyways, just, that's my strategy in general. Just trying to full clear my opponents more efficiently and hope that they don't have a negotiator counter, which frankly most of them don't. My opponent did attack. I apparently didn't show any of my defenses here, and that's okay. Like, I think that they failed once or twice against random teams, and I don't think they actually took out any of my teams, or maybe they took out one. So in the end, my last opponent was just not it was actually not as effective as my first opponent, which happens sometimes, of course. And my finals opponent, though, he had a really well-developed roster, and that included a really fast and strong Darth Revan team. And luckily they didn't put Darth Revan on defense in the front rows, at least, so I was going to be able to hopefully clear the front rows. And you can see a theme here. My opponent took Bastila here with Ezra and Juhani, which is a pretty common composition at this level, just because people have to have Juhani geared if they want to get one of the Revans. And I think that it's Darth Revan that needs Juhani. I always forget these things, but we're just using bounty hunters as per usual. And you see that Boba had execute, and he was able to wipe out all of Ezra's extra protection, or at least most of it. And one of the awesome things that I think maybe I neglected to tell you guys about as well, or talk about earlier with bounty hunters, is Bosk can't ignore taunt, but both of the Fets can. So if someone's taunting, like Juhani here, if you want to hit Ezra instead, go ahead. Like, it works really well. And Bosk is just there to soak up hits. So we're just moving right along here. Took out the one character who had a lot of offense in Ezra, and after that, like, none of these characters pose any threat to my bounty hunters. Like, I could go the full time without doing much damage back, and I still probably wouldn't get taken out by these two. So we're trying to avoid the timeout, which it's not even close at this point. And 53 banners is great. Now I'm doing an undersize here with General Grievous. I just have the Magna Guard, and then Grievous is Relic 3. And this team is just pretty well constructed to be able to take out teams like this. So this is a timeout team. Like, they don't have much damage. They may end up killing Magna Guard or something over time, just because my Magna Guard's only gear 11 and he's not modded super well. But I'm just trying to undersize here, get as many banners as I can. And the fact is, General Grievous ramps up damage over time, and he heals himself, so Kenobi's no threat, even though he is in the actual Clone Wars series. The actual matchup here leaves something much to be desired, in fact. The back zone, my opponent had, some fairly weak teams that they were all actually surprisingly strong, actually. And they also had a General Grievous team in the back, which surprised me, and it was Relic, and it was really scary, and I didn't really have enough teams to deal with it. So we'll have to see how that pans out here. Now we're taking Bastila and Ezra and Ahsoka, trying to take out this Mission and Zalbar squad. And I actually tried this in a recent match in my week 4, which, minor spoilers, I struggled against Mission and Zalbar and Karth, but in general, this is an okay team to try to take out, just because you have so much bonus protection. And the fact is, though, Ezra apparently got taken out. I apparently just didn't remember this match that well, because this is exactly what happened in the match that I just recently played. I was able to take out Karth because he does not have much health or protection, and then the combination of Zalbar and Mission at this level is really potent. And if Mission has her Zeta, which she usually should if you've geared her this much, then she's going to be assisting every time Zalbar does anything, and they were able to take out my Jedi pretty easy. So the awesome thing, though, is I took out Karth, so they don't have a leadership anymore, and now we're just taking my Gear 8 Thrawn, and I think it's Gear 9, or maybe 10 on TIE Fighter Pilot, Gear 11 on Biggs, because he's a pilot, and we took out Mission pretty easy, because we were able to fracture Zalbar, and now we just have to chew through Zalbar's huge health and protection pool, which is tough because he's building defense every single time he gets hit. So you'll start seeing like really small amounts of damage being done to him, and that just happens. Eventually you can get down to the sub thousands against him if you go long enough. Wise people would probably just give him another turn, but my damage isn't falling off too dramatically, so I'm just continuing to plug away. Meanwhile, Thrawn's getting a ton of turns because he's the leader, and was able to heal his entire team up, and I got max banners for having failed. Now moving into the next match, Jedi Revan is great at a lot of different things. One of the things I really like about Jedi Revan, though, is the fact that you can bypass taunt as well. In 3v3, taunt is a really important mechanic, and you can get stuck behind taunt, and Bosk is so hard to get through, especially when he's relict. And I know this guy isn't relict, but when he is relict, he is almost impossible to take out. He is so resilient. And so if he's taunting and he has his taunt Zeta, then you're just not going to get through him. You're just stuck. You're just going to batter away at a wall until that wall eventually wears you away. So, Jedi Revan, he on his own ignores taunt, but then he also, because he ignores taunt, he can also mark someone, and mark just gives you the ability to ignore taunt as well. You can hit them, and it's like imposing a taunt on someone else. And so, in this case, I didn't necessarily need it that much, but it was nice to be able to take out Greedo early on. You see that they have a mace team here, and I just thought it was super funny. I missed with Millennium Falcon, which is why I didn't just completely destroy the team with my first AoE. It's like the weakest team possible. So I don't really know why my opponent put that team in there, except to get some defensive banners, I guess. But probably could have put something stronger there. And now we're facing the back zone. And, I've used up most of my good teams at this point. And, all these teams have a decent amount of gear on them, actually. And Zeta's in the right place and everything. And my Night Sisters aren't super strong. I have a gear 9 on Spirit, gear 10 on Zombie, and 11 on Asajj, I believe. They're all okay modded, but they're not the strongest by any stretch. So, they're good at fighting certain teams, though. And so, one team I'm trying to use, I used on a lot, is Phoenix, and I have Phoenix on defense in Division 5 as well. You can see, though, I was trying to take out Kanan, and the fact is they have a lot of passive abilities going on in the background. Phoenix do, and so every time Kanan takes a turn, every time Chopper takes a turn, they're all doing certain things, and Kanan is regenerating health, and if you take Zalbar on the team, you also start regenerating your protection. So taking out Kanan is really important here if you can. Sometimes you have to. If you can, though, then one of the passive things that he gives his entire team on Phoenix is the ability to counter, and that can really add up in damage after a while. So taking him out is important. Alright, so once again we have Kylo Ren and Fox here. I'm using Watt with them this time, and this is a slightly better first order team than I have, but with Watt, it's actually it's not a very hard team at all to crack. And you'll see in my next video that they crack some like stupidly hard teams. Actually, it's really fun because Watt really facilitates this team to do a ton. And so you put the taunting tech onto Kylo Ren, so he's always taunting. Kylo Ren Unmasked is just perma taunting until he loses his protection, and then sometimes he's taunting anyways. Watt can then heal, and you see that Kylo Ren Unmasked health and protection just jumped up. He was almost dead, jumped up to full, and was able to just take him out. So really easy counter, and just for posterity's sake, like First Order Executioner is also great there. He gains a lot of turn meter and he denies revives. So now I'm taking this squad here with Newt lead and Dooku and Jango, and it's actually a fairly strong team. You see that Jango has 2 undispellable buffs. One of them is just his Bounty Hunter's Resolve. The second one is gone now, and that just means that I can't do damage to him for the first 2 turns because he's using a Separatist leadership. And so for a while I was forced to just hit him because everyone else was in stealth. I did take out Dooku first, just because he can really mess things up with all his stuns and everything. Alright, so my opponent had done well enough that they had full cleared me except for one, except for my fleet, and that meant that they were going to be able to win this match. After I won my final match here, I had really been hoping that I could just squeak out a win here and not actually need to beat my opponent's Grievous squad, because I didn't really have any good squads remaining to be able to take it out. And you can see the score at the very top. If I didn't take out the Grievous squad here, I would lose the match entirely, by 1 point, and that's not something I find acceptable, frankly. And so I needed to find a way to be able to beat it, and I just mostly had dregs remaining. I did have a strong team to maybe finish just Grievous off at the end, maybe, but he's a relic Grievous, lots of hit points. Gear 12 on HK is good, and then once you kill BB-8, then Grievous is going to take a bonus turn with his Zeta, and he's going to reset all of his cooldowns, and he's going to kill your whole team probably, especially with all the teams I have remaining. So going to be really challenging. I decided to take the elephant approach to this team, which is, it's the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? And the answer is 1 bite at a time. So let's see how I did that, if I was actually capable of doing that. So apparently I used just a burner team to be able to kill off BB-8. I don't even know what team it was. I'm frustrated that I lost that. I don't have the video of it. But after that, I have this Machine Gun Leia team, and I use this team a lot, actually, in the next week, so you guys will have to check that out. It's only Gear 8 Leia, and my leftover 3PO, who's Gear 12, but then Akbar is only Gear 8. So, really effective team. I was able to take out HK, so there's no lead here, and then I do have Padme, and maybe Padme would have been enough to start anyways, but they're only Gear 12, and, I just wasn't sure if I'd be able to take out this Grievous on my own, so I was able to two-shot, use worthless characters to kill BB-8, then use other less worthless characters to kill HK, and then was able to take advantage of the courage mechanic and take out General Grievous. So, took 3 hits, but I was able to secure the win here, and you can see my opponent stumbled once against my Newt team here, which is actually also a decent team on defense. Stumbled once against Cad Bane's team, which is surprising because Vander doesn't even have his Zeta. It's kind of funny. I think people underestimate it. Then my Ewoks, they do have 2 Zetas on them, and they have decent mods. They defended 5 times before going down in the 6th. So my opponent did fail once against Negotiator. Apparently decided they didn't want to try again, and that was the final score. So happy enough, I went 3-0 this week, and if I can go 3-0 in my final week, then I'll be undefeated. We'll see if I can get top 100 or top 50, something like that. Probably not top 20 or top 10 because I don't do many of the feats. I haven't been paying attention to them. Just don't care, frankly. But congratulations to my opponent. They did all of my opponents, actually, besides my second one, did pretty well here. My second one appeared to not be that interested. More Zetas for my main account, or for my alt account, is always needed. Tons and tons to catch up on. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Have to really chop down the videos a lot to be able to get it to be this short. And it's not even that short. It's a little over half an hour. So I'm going to leave you guys here. Expect the next video. I am going to do another alt account video for the final week for this championship at least. So we'll have some closure to see if I'm able to get the full, if I think I'm getting Kyber regardless at this point, but see if I can get the 12-0 record again, see if I can get a really gaudy top placement as well. So thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.